This is Coffee with Kelly, a dynamic podcast that's dedicated to driving positive change in school safety. I'm your host, Ethan Woodman, Product Marketing Specialist for Crisis Go, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Kelly Moore, Senior School Safety Specialist for Crisis Go. Our mission is to empower you with essential knowledge, tools, and inspiration required to foster a safer and more secure school environment. We hope this podcast will be the catalyst for transformation in your schools. Join us as we continue to dive into the world of school safety.
Well, it's been a little while.
It has been.
Kelly?
I had to do one all by myself.
I listened to that. It's funny to me, like, how different you are when you're just talking to yourself.
Well, aren't we all different when we're all by ourselves?
It's like you didn't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. That's why we have conversations.
Yeah. It's nice to feel needed, Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but
how could I? You were the one on paternity leave. It wasn't like.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, Ethan.
Yeah. Back to screaming babies. And
yeah, that's good.
All that.
It's all good for you.
It's good. But the first child is doing good with it. There's no jealousy going on. She's actually really good with her. So
yeah,
she loves to like go and give her hugs and kisses, and it's pretty cute.
Yeah, until they're both teenagers.
Yeah. Hopefully they're good.
There's nothing cute about that. So what do we got going today?
Yeah. Well, I guess while I was on paternity, a lot of stuff happened. That happened to be right around the time of, for most schools, I think, a lot of back to school time frame. And as we've talked about many times on this podcast, is you're more likely to see violence occur on the first, week, 2 weeks into school?
In a very short period of time. A couple of weeks is the height, but...
And it's like clockwork.
Let's just recap. Yeah, there's been so many incidences, luckily not all of them shootings, but there's been so many adjoining issues that we've had since essentially the beginning of August. We've had a shooting at a Catholic school. We've had numerous hoaxes. We've received so many hoaxes, I stopped counting.
Yeah.
At all levels, at the university college level, at the secondary level, and at the elementary level. And we've had weapons being found on campus brought in by very young kids. So what does this all mean to us, right? So it depends on how you look at it, but it does mean that the data is still valid.
Mm-hmm.
We are most likely going to see something happen to us when there is a significant break, right? So when you're away from school, there's many reasons. We're not going to get into those reasons today. The fact of the matter is we really need to be very vigilant for that first month or so back from especially summer breaks and winter breaks where they're extended. It happens frequently as well on even breaks that are as short as 3-day holiday breaks, right?
Yep.
So we're in this time right now where it's Labor Day was a couple of days ago. So those are some of the things that we need to be vigilant for. So when we're looking at prevention and identification, one of the things I really wanted to just hit on, I don't want to get into depth, but I want to expose or identify what a hoax generally is viewed as and what it should mean, how we should treat a hoax event.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about a hoax event, we're really talking about somebody in this context. We're talking about somebody who calls in or reports, however that happens, whether it's email, text, an actual phone call. They call in and report an active shooter with multiple people hit, right? So that's going to automatically up the response, right? So people are going to really take that serious. And how we treat that can be successful or can have tragic endings, right? So understand that law enforcement's coming in and they're going to treat it as a real situation until they determine otherwise. What does that mean? That means you should treat it as a school, you should treat it as real until you determine otherwise.
Yeah.
And what are we talking about there? We're talking about indicators. Are there shots being fired? People running, people screaming? Are you seeing injured people? You seeing or smelling smoke from the firing of a weapon? Do you know what that sounds like? Is everything normal? People are just walking about doing their normal activity for that period of time. Now, law enforcement, if you get that as a school, hit the alert, get people into a lockdown, because oftentimes you might not hear it and or you might not recognize it as shots being fired. And then take an assessment of what is happening. Check in with your teachers. Hey, we just got a report of an active shooter. Anybody seeing anything? I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything. Is anyone seeing anything? If the answer to that is no, hit 911 and say, hey, we've got this report. If you have crisis go or something that escalates to law enforcement, they're going to know and they're going to start sending people, likely before you even have that phone call, but call them up and say, hey, we just got a report, but we see no indicators. Right? If law enforcement gets the report and they show up in mass, lights, siren, everything, they should be looking for indicators as well. And they should treat them based upon the indicators, not the report. And that's sometimes where we get into our critical transection, is when one group is coming in, heightened vigilance, heightened awareness, and the other one is nothing's happening and they're coming out waving their hands, they're doing something, and then something tragic happens, right? As opposed to slowing things down, law enforcement should be seeing no indicators. If they're seeing no indicators, they should be slowing things down a little bit, maybe entering the school, but maybe not in mass, because they're trained to go towards the indicators. They might call and say, get the principal out here, let's talk, and kind of work through that communications. What you can't do is you can't run out the front door and start yelling and screaming, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Right?
No,
that happens, right?
Oh, man.
So you can't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
The problem that we tend to have is after it's been determined that it's a hoax and nothing's happened, it came out well, we just determined, yeah, this is a false report. We leave it at that.
It's all good. We just go right back to our day, right?
We might even determine, you know what, this has been too traumatic for our kids. We're going to send them home for the day, or we're going to adjust the schedule or something, right?
I mean, is that the reason? Is that why those things get called in? Just so is it like a kid at the school just doing something dumb and just to get out of school, or what?
That's what I want to get into.
Okay.
So in many cases, this is a equivalent to back in my day when kids would call in a bomb threat. So that they didn't have to turn in a homework assignment. They didn't want to take an exam. They were just tired of school and said, you know what, I don't want to be here. Let's not do this class. I'm going to call in a bomb report or whatever, right? A little bit more difficult today because we can track phones and stuff.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's kind of what this is. And sometimes you'll see the threat posted in the bathroom. Don't come to school tomorrow. It'll be these sort of veiled threats. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a bad day. don't come to school, or things like that. Or sometimes they'll just say there's going to be a shooting tomorrow at school, and somebody will see it and report it, and then now we have a threat assessment, and we're trying to figure out who's written it and so forth, and how we're going to handle that. After we're done with it, there should be lots of things that occur, because just because it was a false report doesn't mean there's not a threat lingering out there. So there's good things and bad things that we can learn from a hoaxed report, right? How did you respond? Did you respond appropriately? Did you look for the indicators? Did you try to mitigate what was happening? How was your communications with law enforcement? How was your communication with your staff? Did you get everyone into a lockdown? How long did that take? What were the problems? So you really should do an after action report, review, assessment of what actually happened. And then you should ask this question: was this a false report for the purpose of analyzing response?
Probing,
preparing,
yep.
Right? Walking through, okay, this is where they came. Maybe I want to go out the back way. They enveloped this pretty quick, so I'm not really going to have an escape route here. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. The other part of this is you're reviewing your protocols and whether or not they were carried out like you thought they should be, and looking for areas or opportunities for improvement. But also look at this incident and think to yourself, could this have been a probing? Could this have been a dry run to analyze the response? How long did it take for them to get here? How long did it take for them to figure things out? What was the communications like? What was the alerts like? How, that kind of stuff. And compare that to, do you have anyone who's made that veiled threats recently? Or have had an issue? Maybe you can connect them, maybe you can't. But you should examine that. You should look at these are all steps that we would call left of bang, because your incident didn't happen. So you have no bang other than you have this initiation. You think you do. So now start looking at, okay, was this a potential dry run? Is that part of the training, the preparation for the soon to be shooting somewhere else, or even here? And try to connect that, if you can, connect it with somebody who might have been involved with that. It's a crime. So law enforcement is going to look at that, but you ought to be in a teamwork environment with law enforcement. You should say, the other day we disciplined a kid for making these veiled threats. We gave him detention or suspended him for 2 days or what have you, right? But we've had these threats and we've dealt with this, and now this happens. And if you take that back to looking at what we started off with all of these incidents, all these hoaxes, the shootings, the weapons being found, being connected to returning to school, you also have to go back to last year. Who were you dealing with last year? What might we tie into there? So don't just let it sit as, okay, it's false and we're glad nothing happened. Let's move on. Because there's a lot to be learned.
So you're saying that when that happens, you would run through it as like a drill, essentially, like an active shooter drill. Like go through the whole process.
Yeah, so you've run it like a drill. Now you need to evaluate it like it's a drill, but it's not just a drill.
Like with our system, you wouldn't put it into drill mode. If it's a hoax, you're putting that into, you're doing everything.
No, because you don't know you don't know it's a hoax until you determine that it's not, right?
Right.
So you're activating an active alert. And everyone who's getting notified, whoever you have set the permissions to or required in your state, those people are getting notified.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hitting a panic button, the whole panic button package is coming towards you, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. I totally get it. But now let's look at what steps were taken. How did you guys respond, and so forth. And then now we have to analyze what occurred and see if we can place it with somebody and or on the pathway to violence. Because if we can tie that to somebody who is on the pathway to violence, that's a high level threat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're very high level.
They're right up there. They're close to bang.
They're a step
right below it.
away.
Yeah.
Yep.
The argument that I see that's relevant to this is, what if we didn't do active shooter drills? Then that person wouldn't be able to use that as a probing method to evaluate how we do things. The argument is we shouldn't be doing active shooter drills for the purpose of potentially showing how we do things. I kind of know what your response is, but I have to bring it up because I saw it recently and I'm like, hold up.
So let me go take it outside of the context of the active shooter and the hoax and the drill.
Sure.
There's many places, jurisdictions, so forth, that by policy and or law keep all of these things secret. Your plans, all the plans or stuff are secret for that reason. So you're not, maps are secret, plans are secret. Look at the reality is, and I will start from the very high level. The reality is, with a 30-second internet search, I can find an active shooter drill.
Yeah.
I can find maps to your schools. I can Google it and I can tell you. But we go back to who's the most likely suspect. It's somebody who already has knowledge of your school. They don't need a map. Right. They've been in your school likely more times than law enforcement has.
Yeah.
Right? They understand. They've probably practiced this forever. Even if they don't, if you never practice it, I will tell you what will happen. If you don't do an active shooter drill and you have an active shooter, you're going to have absolute mayhem.
That's going to be nuts.
Confusion.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know what to do. It just absolutely kills me that this kind of conversation is even still out there.
I'm not making this up.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And it doesn't surprise me. It just irritates me.
Yeah.
Because we can't bury our heads in the sand and say, look, if I don't see it or we don't do it, they don't care.
No.
They do not care. They have a plan to go shoot up a school.
Yeah.
They are going to get in, or they're going to go do something if they're not, and they're going to wait until and adjust their plans until they are satisfied. So they can execute whatever plan they end up with.
The example I used is, if you actually do it really well and you show that like you were confident, you do all the things that you're supposed to do, like according to plan, I argue that that's actually going to be a deterrent, because that's going to be a resistance. And with almost every single one of these, it's whatever the least resistance they're going to have, that's what they go for. They go for the soft targets. That's why you're seeing more and more of these like church-like shootings, is because a lot of churches, they don't have as much stuff to discard. But it's like, it's like with the covenant thing. It's like that person was going to go to another school, and they didn't, because they knew there was security there. So they went to somewhere else that knew that there wasn't any security. So that's my argument, is that if you, even if they see it and it's like, oh wow, they did a really good job, like they know their stuff. Like
yeah. So when when we talk about working through plans and practicing and drilling, what we're doing is adding knowledge, skills, and experience, right? And the more people you have that have a high level of knowledge, high level of skill, high level of experience in responding to these, preparing for them, and so forth, the more people your community has confidence that you can handle whatever's thrown at them. And the more confidence you have, it goes to your point, the less likely you are to actually have something happen. Plain and simple.
Yep.
Because people are going to move to areas where they think they have a better chance at succeeding, however that's defined. What you don't want is people who, if all you do is the lockdown, that's this much of an incident. That is a minuscule portion of that 8-minute complete chaos event. If your teachers don't know what to do because you haven't trained them, you are going to continue to have high numbers of casualties. There's going to be confusion. If you're not training your kids to get in behind a locked door and they're confused, here's a perfect example. So we talk about human response to crisis with the denial, the deliberation, the decisive movement. We've talked about that extensively. Denial is based upon the inability to process what is actually happening. You say, I've never, what are those? Is that a backfiring car? No, it can't happen at this school. It must be something else. And deliberation is once you determined that, yep, those are in fact gunshots, now you have to deliberate what you want to do. And then you say, oh, those are gunshots. I'm supposed to go into a lockdown. Now I have to move. Run, hide, fight, deny, defend, whatever those acronyms are. That takes time. If you don't know what you're supposed to do, how are you going to even deliberate? You're going to sit there and go, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. You're right? The whole time, somebody's shooting either at you, in close proximity to you, down the hall from you, or what have you. The whole purpose of doing drills and exercises is to ingrain in you muscle memory, this muscle, as well as physically moving, and to a point where you don't deny it, you don't deliberate, or you reduce these two as quickly as possible, and you get to that decisive moment as fast as possible, reducing the reactionary gap.
It's interesting. Have you ever looked up what happens to your body at different intervals of like heart rates?
Sure.
So like if you're like, let's say you don't do drills and stuff and you run into a situation like you get a big fire in your school and it's gonna be chaotic. Like your heart rate's gonna go up, and like if you haven't practiced it, you're not gonna be able to keep calm as well. So your heart rate's gonna go just skyrocket, right? And at some point you like, that's when at some interval, like that's when you get like the real like closed focus and like things start to blur.
Yeah.
You're like your
tunnel vision.
Your body functions like you start to like at some point you like can't even like grab onto things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just
fine
goes,
motor skills.
It just goes up
right
beyond that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you reduce your ability to use your fine motor skills. Like, so you can't open a door, you can't lock a door.
Yeah, because your hands
you can't
just like
do all of these things.
Doing this.
We call that stress.
Yeah.
Right? In my field, that's a stress-induced environment. And so when we train, when we go through our drills, our shooting drills, we go through any kind of drill, what we're doing is, for lack of a better term, it's called stress inoculation. So it's like taking a vaccine for stress. And we're learning to calm ourselves down. We're learning to breathe so we don't get into that tunnel vision, or at least until at the very last moment, right? Because we want a full vision. We want to see what's happening around us. We want to make sure that we are reacting correctly. So the more that we do that, the better off we are. And, it's been proven time and time again. The military does it, law enforcement does it, fire departments do it, combat medics do it. They work well under pressure because they've drilled, because they've exercised, and they don't have to think about the actual movement. They know what the end goal is, so they move to the end goal. They don't care how many steps you take. They don't care in what order. You just get to the end goal, right? And so it's important to do those drills. That's why it's important to do tabletop exercises. So you don't have to think about it.
I wish I could do one of those.
I wish you could.
Yeah.
One of these days, I will let you do one.
Like have me come up with it?
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, man. It'd be wild.
But the idea is we're working through these problems over and over again before they are problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, getting and transitioning real quick into our main topic, which is controlled release and reunification, is that one of the most important things that we do is after an incident is reunify our kids with their families. It's also the least practiced.
Why is it the least practiced? Do you have any inclination?
Because it overwhelms people. They're like, how are we going to practice? It's going to take us hours to practice. It doesn't. You can do tabletop exercises in a few minutes if you understand, especially if you have a designated reunification team at the district level. They can practice and practice and practice so that they understand, and at the site level what's going to happen and where you're going to go or where you're likely to go and how to interface with the reunification team, right? How are you getting the kids from point A to point B? How are you checking them in? How are you making notification to the parents? How are you dealing with parents who are trying to pick up their kids when they don't have legal custody or a right to have that child, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? You ask yourself questions. And why are you asking those questions? Because those are problems that are going to come up. They're going to come up during an incident. So you can say, okay, I've already talked through this several times. And that next time, if we have an incident, we can legitimately reunify these kids. It takes some practice, sure, but you can do that without bothering the whole school. You can do it with 5 or 6 people, 10 people, because it's the management of I call them packages, little packages running around, right? And the students, and trying to get them back with their parents. We've talked about how are we going to be remembered from when we have an incident. And I will tell you, you will be remembered, going back to our previous conversation, you will be remembered for everything that you did wrong. You will not be remembered for everything you did correct, which is a good thing, right? If you're doing it correct and everyone says, hey, they did a great job, fantastic. Every little minutia intricate detail that you missed, overlooked, or didn't do to somebody's satisfaction is going to be scrutinized. And if you don't practice, you're just giving ammunition to all of the legal challenges you're going to have at the end of this.
Yep.
It's crazy that people are saying, well, we shouldn't even do this. Those people have never experienced an incident.
Yeah.
Especially if they're coming from our schools.
Yeah.
I understand parents because, they're just trying to figure it out without any information, without any data.
It's worse when it's coming from people that are self-proclaimed school safety experts, because then other people are listening to them. I think that's what really grinds my gears. It's like, hold up. You can't be telling people this. That's not okay.
That's a stupid position.
It's dangerous.
Don't practice. Yeah, it's dangerous.
But anyways, so I think it's a pretty good lead into controlled release. So controlled release is what one of our colleagues referred to as the little brother to our safety reunification manager. And I feel like controlled release is like such a good, it's almost like you're drilling reunification on an everyday basis. Obviously, there's things that are not part of control release that are part of reunification. Reunification has more steps to it, but I feel like if you were to use control release on a daily basis, it's like a light version. And then if you ever had to do reunification, it's like, oh, we've been doing this every single day. I know how to do this. Oh, and then you just added a couple steps. All right, that's fine. Good to go.
Ultimately, controlled release is a reunification.
It's on a daily basis.
That it's on a daily basis, right? So there are everyday reunifications. We make sure that we go back many months, if not a couple of years ago, when we talked about what are the primary objectives and expectations from the parents of your kids. They want their kids to get to school safely. They want them to have a safe, supportive, engaging educational experience while they're there, and that you return them home safely. Every day we do that. You know why and how? We just send them home and nothing happens. As soon as something happens that changes the responsibility of the school, then we have a controlled release or a reunification. Now we have to make sure that the person who is at our school is picked up by the person who has legal custody or a legal right to pick them up. Right? It's the marrying of those two, the joining of those two. We call it controlled release, or there's some services where you take the pickup line. And in order to make the pickup line more efficient, you line up the parents and see how they're coming in, and you line up the kids and see how they're coming in, and then you make sure that they're connected to the right people, right? So that's an everyday example of a reunification. You're making sure little Susie gets with Mama.
Yep.
Mama Susie, right? And you do that by notifications. Hey, I'm here. Where's little Susie? Little Susie's here. When you get to the front of the line, little Susie will be there waiting for you to get in. Boom, 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 right? And controlled release is now we have the whole school that has to be released. So you might do it by class. You might do it by throwing everybody in the gym or out on the playground. But now you're releasing them. There's no real emergency, but you still had something that happened that you need to make sure that you're essentially shutting the school down, whether it's a routine or something happened, let's say a electrical failure or a plumbing failure or something that you can't fix. So you need to have mom and dad take off work and come in, pick up their kids. But you have to make sure that those kids get to somebody, right? Make sure somebody's home, make sure somebody's coming to pick them up, etc. So that's what a controlled release is. Reunification is, you might want to say, a step above that, but it's not really. The end goal is making sure little Johnny gets with Mrs. Johnny so that they are together.
I think you might be taking a couple roles out of the equation. Is that, because I think in a reunification you have like the checker and the person that's responsible and the kid hold.
At some point, if you're doing a controlled release, you have to identify who's picking them up.
Yeah.
Right. So the kid hold is different only in naming. So our controlled releases are typically from the classroom. So the teacher is kid hold.
Interesting. Okay.
And at some point, somebody's little mommy's coming up to the front office and saying, I'm here to pick up Johnny. Where's Johnny? Room 127. Johnny, your mom's here. And they go up. You might not get into the complete questions, are you good? Because the difference to me is not the process. The process is the same, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's the circumstances in which the process was initiated. You had something happen and you need to cancel the rest of the day. So now you need to get everyone out of the school and so forth. But they're really not an emergency. There's no crime scene tape.
It's like the chill version of reunification.
Chill version.
We should have called it reunification chill mode.
Chill mode. Old folks mode. You still have a responsibility to get those kids with the right people.
I'm trying to think of a question that we would get. Like, why would I need controlled release? Why can't I just continue doing the things the way that I'm doing them?
So let me ask you this. So the benefit is you're tracking who you're releasing the kid to, right? And you're making sure that child is safe because there's been an interruption in the normal process. So there's an expectation every day that little Johnny and little Susie, or brother and sister, are going to walk home together.
Mm-hmm.
When there's an interruption and somebody says, okay, go home, they might not know to wait for each other. They might not understand that no one's home at noon because they typically don't get out until 2:30. So nobody's at home. So now you need to make sure that somebody's there to receive them. So it's a more formalized process. You can't just open the doors and let kids out if there's been an interruption. It's a little bit different when you're at the high school level. But even at the middle school level, it would be concerning for somebody to just say, okay, we're just sending everybody home. Without knowing what that communications with, like, let's take the realistic side to this. Middle school at 11:30, power shuts off, which, by the way, means you have no sewer because most schools now have automatic flushing toilets and they require electricity. So you can't flush toilets. So you have an issue that you have to close the school until you can figure it out. And if you don't figure it out in the first few minutes, you have to shut the school down at 11:30. Kids usually don't get home till 3:00. So now you have 3.5, 4 hours where these moms expecting Junior to be at school, and you've just opened the doors and said, go home. All you kids just go home. Where do you think those kids are going to go?
Wait, hold on. They don't do that. You don't just open the doors and let the kids out.
Well, but what I'm saying is, the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I'm taking the question is why do you need a controlled release?
So, like, without controlled release, would they be just calling each parent individually saying, hey, this is what happened, come pick up your kid, and then timesing that by a whole bunch?
Well, different schools are going to do it differently, right? Different schools are going to do it differently.
Yeah.
Emails, maybe mass notifications through a mass notification system, like those that are used every day for checking in on homework and stuff, whatever, right? Making just their notifications, hey, don't forget Monday's Labor Day, right? So that you're going to get those types of notifications. They're going to try everything they can to notify. It may be through email. It may be through a phone tree. It may be through an alert system like Crisis Go with controlled release. If they don't have a mechanism to conduct or a process to conduct controlled releases, what are they doing?
That sounds complicated. Hopefully they're not just sticking them on buses and just dropping them off at home and saying, good luck.
But if they can't keep them at the school...
Yeah, where do they go?
where do they go? Right. So you can't, what I'm saying is, I think they're more diligent than that, right?
Yeah.
You can't just open the doors and let them go. So you have to figure something out.
Mm.
You have to remove them from the hazard, in this case, sewage, remove them from the hazard, and have to make sure that somebody comes and gets them. Controlled release from the perspective of Crisis Go allows us to track that, allows us to make notifications, allows us to control the release.
And there's like the accountability behind it too, you know, like
Yeah, that's right.
This kid went to this person that was designated as a person that is allowed to pick up this kid's. You know,
that's correct. Right.
Their long lost uncle from wherever didn't pick them up. They, you know, like
right, or they weren't just allowed to walk home.
Yeah.
Those are the circumstances that you would have a controlled release. It's not an emergency, but there's some reason that we have to alter the schedule and or shut down the school. So it's controlled, but we're still documenting, we're still moving through the process, and we're accounting for those kids, because here's what also happens. I can't get a hold of somebody. Like, they're not responding to my communications.
Like the parent isn't picking up the phone. The parent isn't. Okay.
Yeah. So what am I going to do with these kids?
That's where I was going to go with this.
Do I need to move them to another site?
With control release, a parent would be able to say, "Hey, I'm 2 hours away. I'm at work and I'm going to be stuck in traffic. I'm not going to make it there. Can I have someone else pick them up?" You could
go through whatever your protocols say you can do.
Right? You could go into the app and go, "Hey, so and so, this is their information. They're allowed to pick them up."
Yeah. However they've set up their policies and protocols.
Right. Yeah, that'd be a lot easier than the school trying to just sit there and wait for whatever, you know, like.
Well, at some point, if you can't get a hold of them and you can't make other arrangements, you're going to have to figure it out. It's the same with if you have an incident and you've sent all your notifications out and you have zero response from a parent. At some point, you're going to have to make a decision.
Maybe that should be a drill.
Maybe
that should be a tabletop. You got like X amount of kids that you're not getting responses of their parents from.
Yeah, that's right. What do you do if you have leftover children?
Leftover children.
You don't have any place. You can't let them walk out the door and say, "Okay,
no.
hope you survive." You got to make arrangements for it. You got to figure that out, up to and including calling Child Protective Services.
Man,
you might have to release them to somebody who can watch them for you.
Wow.
Because the parents aren't available. But that's what tabletops are for. That's what, your controlled release, that's working through that, because there are situations that are not elevated to the level of an active shooter, but you still need to make sure that you're pairing the right kids up with the right parents. And you have to be able to document that. That's what controlled release does. Reunification is the same. They're a little bit more extensive because it's all, you're moving, generally speaking, you're moving kids from one site to another. Facilities are unfamiliar to people. Ingress are unfamiliar. They're different than normal pickup, that kind of stuff. And just the elevation of the type of event is added stress and anxiety. Those are all things you have to practice. And if you're going to engage in those two different acts, you need to make sure that the parents understands the difference between the two. We may notify you if there's a situation where we have to reunify your kid that is not really an emergency, but we have to go through this formal process because we're altering our daily schedule. And it's an emergency because we can't go on with school, but it's not something that's really going to cause injuries or death to somebody. If that's the case, then we're going to do a full reunification and we're going to go through that formalized process. They're both formalized, ones that are a little bit lower, but we're not going to add we're not going to do it under added stress and anxiety.
I think it's cool. I think it could be used in many different ways and different places.
Making sure that the kid that you have in your custody is passed to somebody else who has the ability to watch that kid, take custody of that child. And it could be used in daycare settings, it could be used in church settings where you drop your kid off for daycare or Sunday school or what have you, and you can track that and say, okay, here's the kid, here's my child, only release them to me when I'm done with the church service. That's what this is about. It can certainly be used that way. I'll tell you, I went through a quick, it was like a 30-second tabletop on reunification. And what I did was I took some pinochle cards. Do you know what pinochle is?
No.
It's a card game.
Is that like an old person card game?
I will tell you, that's what I thought it was. My roommates, when I was in college, played pinochle all of the time. They were all from Pennsylvania.
Oh, well, this is making
They played
sense.
pinochle. Right. But they played pinochle all of the time, and they introduced me to it. But it's been almost 50 years since I've played. Well, it's been 40 years anyway since I've played pinochle. It's used with a special deck, and it only has the cards from ace to 9, I believe. But it has 4 suits. It still has the 4 suits. So now you can identify roles and assign those roles to specific cards. Like the ace. Let's say the ace is your reunification officer, administrator, right? And your king and queen are parents. Your jack might be a secondary school age kid. 9 and 10 might be elementary. You get a group of people and you start passing out cards and you say, okay, all of the aces, raise your hand. All right, you're all part of the reunification process. Get over to this table, right? So who has kings and queens? Raise your hands. Okay, your parents, go over here to this side. And who has a jack, a 10, or a 9? That's us. Okay, you are all children. All right. So now I walk over to one of the children and I grab their card and I say, come with me. And I say, okay, parent, who are you looking for? And you look and say, oh, I'm a dad. I'm a king of hearts. And I said, okay, but I have a jack of spades. Can I reunify that kid? No, because they don't match. And that's all we're doing is we're trying to match the king of hearts with a jack of hearts or a 9 of hearts or a 10 of hearts. And that just shows that process. Now you can ask, well, wait a second. You asked for this guy. Why would you ask for that guy? Oh, well, somebody told me I needed to pick up their kid. Okay, we don't have record of that. So let's figure that out. Right? So we can work through that. We can actually just very quickly identify groups of people and we can switch that up. We can reshuffle that deck and play a couple of those rounds just so people start getting the physical flow, because once you figure out the flow, it doesn't matter. Now all you're saying, wait a second, you asked for Jenny Smith, spelled Smythe, and not Jenny Smith, Smith. Right? So you can say, okay, now you ask, is that your parent? Well, no, that's not my dad. But you're Jenny Smith, right? And then He said, but you're John Smith, right? Yes. What's your daughter's name? Jenny Smith. How do you spell her name? And then you can start trying to, wrong, Jenny Smith, right? You can start identifying that. You start working through those. There's many ways to do it, and it does take practice, but you don't need a full-on, you know how to work your SIS system. You know your kids. You know which kids are in your class when something happens, generally, and who you're responsible for. And when you use a reunification like Crisis Go and so forth, now we can start identifying, I'm moving the kids from the impacted site to the kid hold, put them in that bucket, we check them in, we notify the parents, then we bring them all together, and all we're doing is saying, all right, these two match. Here's a picture, signature. Are you comfortable leaving with this person? Yes. And then you move on. The process is all the same.
Yep.
Except for now, I've documented, time and date stamped every step in that process. So if somebody says, wait a second, that person was not supposed to go with their mom. Well, it doesn't say that on the SIS card.
Mm.
You guys, you haven't updated it. That's not my business. That's yours. Go figure it out.
Yep.
Your wife has her, right? So there you go. This is practice.
Just practice it. Just do it. It's okay. You can do it.
Right? We started talking about why practice. Because practice matters.
Yeah.
And there's been huge uproar about some cases, how they were mismanaged. Reunification is a direct management operation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to manage that. And if you don't manage it correctly, you could do everything else 100% correctly, but everyone will look at that and say, this was piss poor. You guys didn't know what you're doing, and it all gets overgeneralized and over scrutinized, but it's going to be a mess.
Oh yeah. Especially if you got like parents that are like trying to pick up their kid and like they're sitting there for however long and they're like,
hours.
Where's my kid? As soon as like a parent gets that like indication of like, no one knows where my kid is, or like, I don't know where my kid is, that's where things just, you got to make the process like as seamless and painless as possible, especially for parents, because if parents start to get that like indication that you don't know what you're doing, well, all bets are off basically at that point. So
let me ask you this real quick before we have to buzz, but who in even a controlled release, but especially a reunification, which person in this process, this entire process, has the most anxiety about the process?
My first guess is the parent.
The parent.
Yeah.
Who knows the least about this process?
Probably the parent.
The parent.
Yeah.
Who is going to tell you whether or not you're doing it correctly the quickest?
Definitely the parent.
The parent.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
So if you want things to run smooth, you want to we talk about increasing or decreasing trauma, both physical and emotional. If you want to inflict a bunch of trauma, emotional trauma on somebody, don't practice. Just wing it. Right? That goes for the active shooter question that you brought up. That goes for a fire drill. That goes for anything that is likely to cause or have a potential to cause trauma.
Yeah.
The least you understand the process, the more anxiety and trauma that you're going to create.
That's how you lose enrollment.
That's how you lose enrollment. That's how you lose.
It's like how to lose enrollment 101 right there.
Why is that? Because they've lost confidence in your ability to protect their child.
Yeah. Soon as a parent
3
is like, you
objectives.
can't protect my kid.
3 objectives.
Yeah.
Get them to school, keep them safe and in a engaging environment, positive, supportive environment, get them home. If you lose the confidence in any of those, you're not getting their kid.
Nope.
You're just not going to do it. Not a chance.
Yep.
So practice, drill, exercise, tabletops, use them. I would use them weekly.
Yeah.
I would at least align a tabletop based upon a scenario for your drill for that month or the drills that you are doing. Go a week out, 2 weeks out and say, okay, in 2 weeks, we're going to have this drill. Here's the scenario. Let's talk through it. Ask questions. What if this happens? What are we supposed to do here? Talk through it. That's the time to have it. Right? Answer those questions. You know why you want to answer those questions during a tabletop? Because you're the ones that are going to answer them during the drill.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are going to say, hey, this happened. What am I supposed to do here? Well, you've already worked through it. You know when else you're going to answer those questions?
When
when you have an actual incident
yeah.
and you're sitting in front of a jury.
Oh man.
That's the reality.
Yeah. That's been a reality for a few, for sure.
I have yet to hear of an incident that has not resulted in some sort of lawsuit. It's both internally and externally. The kindergarten teacher that was shot by the 6-year-old sued for them failing to protect her because there was information previous and they sort of, that 6-year-old ain't going to happen. There's no excuse today for saying, oh, we didn't do that. Why didn't you do that? We didn't think about it. Why didn't you think about it? Well, we didn't drill. Why didn't you drill? Well, we didn't want to teach our potential suspects what we were going to do. When you're talking about those types of things, it's easy to find out the information. I can find it out, and you know me in technology, and I can find it out, and I can figure out pretty quick. I can figure out what you're supposed to do, and I can figure out what you're not doing.
Mm.
Keeping things secret. I told this to my school. They said, we're keeping this all secret, right? I said, you can do it, but they're not secret. What do you mean? These have to be secret. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I have to teach it to 20,000 people.
You 20,000 people, don't say a word.
Don't say a word. As soon as I have to train people so they understand it. So there's certain information in there, like personal information, that should be kept confidential.
Yeah. You
can redact that out. But the fact of the matter is you can't have an effective training program or a emergency response plan and keep it secret. So nobody knows what it is. You're training it. The objective is to train it so that people, through muscle memory, can respond appropriately. Everyone knows their roles, everyone knows their expectation, and everyone can execute those. Tell me how you keep that secret. We have 50 million students. I don't even know how many teachers, but in our public schools, and that's not talking about the private and homeschoolers. I'll tell you, the first school-based emergency plan that I wrote for the district, I got it off the internet. I said, "Oh, this looks like a good plan."
Well, there you go.
Right there. No sense in reinventing the wheel. Every state has a template. You can go to whatever site and say, "I need a template for the state of California for their comprehensive school safety plan." Download it. Here you go. Fill it out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions about what we discussed, leave a comment on our website at crisisgo.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Coffee with Kelly, a discussion on school safety.